Mic's on. Call our meeting to order. Let the minute reflect all members present, with the exception of Steve Wagaman with prior notice. Next thing we'll do is set the agenda. Anybody like to add or subtract to the agenda today?
President Prenner, staff do have two additions. One is ratifying the depository designation. I believe we will make that, was that 2A would be a good spot?
Yep.
And additionally, the administrator hiring process, that would be 1A.
Yeah, Beth will be there anyway, so her 1 and 1A. Okay, any other changes, additions, subtractions? Need a motion.
We
Madam
accept
Chair.
the agenda as modified.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approval of the minutes.
Madam President, I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes from Wednesday, June 26, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we come to the consent agenda. Nick?
Consent agenda? Of course, first one.
Oh, well, let's let Nick get up there first, and then we'll,
Chris is smiling, he knows. The first one, that high water table. The buyback corporate, 19-047. Now I know you guys have got it.
page,
22.
yeah.
Yeah, that high water table. This isn't always, this is a lower area, and I know that we've got wetlands in there, and I think the water's going two different directions. This is the one that's got the two watershed, our WMO and our Rice Creek watershed?
That's correct, Board of Managers.
Yeah.
This is the one with the joint powers agreement with Sunrise River WMO. I'll get down to our photo here, and just so I don't forget, staff do have an adjustment to this ER. Before you on your screen is the layout of the project. The orangey yellow bricks are the proposed impervious. As to the high water table that Manager Hockey inquired about, you'll see we do have, where my cursor is there to the lower left, an infiltration basin. So there are locations where they do have the separation necessary for infiltration basins, 3 feet of separation.
That's what I was wondering.
So they did to the maximum extent possible, and then they do go into adjacent pond areas. You are correct, there are wetlands on the site as well, the public drainage system is present, et cetera. Can I assist further?
Yeah, no, and is this underground parking? I mean, are you putting the parking and it's gonna end up with 2 floors or 3 floors, and then finally the building
It would
starts?
have to be submarine parking.
Well, I just meant if they are doing it where they've got it under the building and there's parking, and you've got to have 3 feet up for that concrete flooring,
These are
and then you
homes.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is residential construction,
Okay.
Board of Managers.
Just residential.
So, the residential homes do have a pad site with an elevation that will meet the district's requirements.
Madam President. So Nick, the discussion at the last time was that there's a straight line across this as to where the designation of authority was between the district and our colleagues to the north of us. Has that designation line been refined? That was a question about.
I was gonna ask that, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'd have
let
been the
me-
next question.
There we go.
So were you able to refine as to where, because the bricks show the straight line still, the brick permit file, picture, photograph.
I'll answer that, Board of Managers, and then, John, if I'm not, Manager Waller, if I'm not capturing it, we can discuss further. But the yellow area
Okay.
is, on the screen here, is the area of Rice Creek jurisdiction based on the JPA. So all the homes to the southeast of the new road that is proposed on the site. So that'll mimic very closely the hydrologic condition in the future.
So that looks like that all the yellow bricked areas that are on the photograph are in our area then.
That is correct. So based
Okay.
on the JPA, that is the area that
Yep.
your district engineer reviewed it for.
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, that high water, and it's such an area that's so wet that I hope the people don't have problems later
So.
of their
wait,
basements.
So did you want to see Queensland houses built there?
What's a Queensland house?
Well, that's where they built it up a whole story and the garages underneath.
Yeah, I've
in
seen
case
that.
there's a
That's
flood.
not a bad idea.
Well,
I just think
this
it's
is
very
the
much a
second part of
wetland.
their addition, and they have had no trouble with the first, so.
Yeah, well, Columbus, what, 80% wetlands? So
Pretty much.
I know that you guys are getting a lot of development, another one's coming up here for Hy-Vee, but at any rate.
Okay.
President Priner, Board of Managers, staff do have an addition on page 23 of your packet, and I'm sorry I do not have a illustration for you. We would like to create a new Rule I caprock item number 5, and then we'll just shift the numbering down from there.
Okay.
The new caprock item 5 would read, "The applicant must clearly and accurately identify the center line of the public drainage systems on the final plan set." And of course, that will drive the easements and the other caprock items.
Good.
Staff have no other changes for any of the permits before you this morning.
Anything else?
This is next to where you live, right?
Yep. Anything else on the consent agenda?
No,
Okay, do we need a motion? Or unless you have a question.
I have one, just quick clarify. So you identified the center line of the public drainage system. I'm all for that. So the purpose of identifying the center line is for you to know what the easement area is going to be each side of it? Is that going to be designated? Have you, with the developer, has he decided to give X amount of feet one side or the other of the center line so we know? Chris?
Madam President, Manager Waller, we're calling out 20 feet from the top of bank on either side of the center line. So one thing that the applicant will need to
Okay.
demonstrate is not only the center line of it, but then we'll have to show where the top of
The
bank
bank
is.
is.
And we'll have discussions with them about, the width of the ditch,
Easement.
Yeah.
as we review the easement documents.
I like the idea of using the center line and footage from the center line either side to identify where the right-of-way is going to be.
yep.
President Priner, Board of Managers, Manager Waller, that manifests itself piggybacking on what Mr. Ottern has said in old caprock item 5. It discusses the requirement for the easement to
Yep.
be recorded on the property.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Need a motion?
Madam President, I move we Cap Rock permits 19-047, 19-053, 19-058 as contained in engineer's report dated July 1 and 2, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I,
And that was as amended, I'm sorry.
As amended.
As amended.
I accept that.
Okay. All right, next thing on the agenda is open mic. Seeing nobody in the audience, we're gonna go to items requiring board action. And I believe Beth is next. Consider the outreach document. And we received the updated copy this morning.
Good morning, President Priner, Board of Managers, others in the room. Thank you for letting me be here this morning. We've got the outreach document on kind of a broad look at watersheds and watershed districts to raise understanding and awareness. We completed this document. Numerous partners, including MAUD and other surrounding watershed districts and watershed management organizations, are very interested in using a similar outreach document and had asked us to share. So after our discussion on Monday, kind of reworked some things. and also created that information sheet that we had kind of discussed, so that when we are sharing this electronically, that the first two pieces would be as a PDF, and those are our specific examples. So people could use those, but they wouldn't be able to change them. The instructions would also go out as a PDF, and then the final document with the highlighting would accompany that information sheet. That would be in Word. And that information sheet kind of makes the recommendations of how to make it applicable to their watershed district or watershed management organization.
Should you explain to Mr. Waller what a Word document and a PDF is?
Well, and you know, I did say that when they go out as a PDF, they won't be able to change them, but there are now a lot of tools where they could change a PDF, but you can change any document, so.
Heck.
Yeah.
Any hacker can do whatever they
Yeah.
want to do.
Any further questions on this document? We do have a motion on page 1 of the handout for today.
Page 1, I'd like to make a motion to approve the sharing of this watershed outreach materials as a template with any necessary formatting and non-materials changes to partner organizations for use in their outreach and educational efforts.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion.
Well, Madam President, as you know, I don't agree with the outreach document. I don't think it's factually correct in many different places. And so I will not vote in favor of it. I realize I'm in the minority, but that's nothing new at times. But I do find that, first of all, we really don't manage the example that's given here on a watershed basis. Have never done that. I don't see that even in the plan, and that we manage sub-watershed districts. And there's been some information here that's neglected. For example, there's no mention of the concrete that was poured into the Portland Avenue culvert years ago. It was done without a process of procedures, which generates tons of phosphorus that goes into Bald Eagle Lake. So, because water is a liquid, it's odorless, colorless, but it also is a solvent, and it dissolves organic materials into phosphorus, both dissolved and particle.
Okay.
So with that, I'll keep that in mind, and I'll just be on the rebuttal side of the issue.
Then we'll go for individual votes. Waller?
No.
Bradley?
Yes.
Yes.
Reiner, yes. Motion passes. Okay, then we're gonna go right to 1A, which was our discussion about administrative. It was handed out today. Okay, how to review the applications. Go ahead, Beth.
Just I apologize that this is coming to you in your board meeting. I know it was your desire to see it go into your workshop after this meeting took place. Spoke to Chuck Holtman who is one of our legal consultants, and because the meeting after this is not a standing meeting, but not a standing workshop, but a special workshop, which is still considered a meeting, we could only add it to this agenda.
That's fine.
So, kind of forgive me as I kind of try to present this to you in a way that both respects this this arena, but gets some of the dialogue that we need to have done. So we did discuss this at Monday's workshop, and so I have been fortunate to get some input from Chuck Holtman. He did copy and include Lewis on it, and so he's been gracious enough to say he's gonna be my wingman, if you will, today, and help us through some of the legal issues, particularly with our process, because since the entire board is going to be a part of the interview committee, we are going to be balancing both the open meetings law and the data
Privacy.
Thank you, data privacy laws. So, and that's going to be something we just kind of have to maneuver a little carefully. So a couple of things, kind of as you read through that process, I tried to kind of put voice to what we all said in the room, what was said in the room, and then there's some additional comments from Chuck. The applications would come in, and then we would collect all of them and send them out to each of the board members. Board members must then review those independently, and any communications, emails would have to go through staff. It could not be sent to the group as a whole, because then we start to wade into the open meetings requirements. After the board has reviewed the applications, they would send their top 5 back to me as staff member there in no particular order or with any ranking. It would just be, these are my 5. I believe that's was the intent of the group.
And all we have to do is list those names.
All you have to do is list those names
Okay.
at that point, and you
5
send them.
names.
And we're still private. This is all still private then. I would take that list of names and kind of compile them and see if there's some overlap. And then beyond that, we would share kind of that new shortened list, which could have as few as 5 if you all pick the same people, as many as 25 if there's absolutely no overlap and we actually have that many applicants. And then that would go to the list of people that would be doing some kind of review, some additional review. We've discussed staff, we've discussed some of our consultants. One note on that, the Data Practices Act, Chuck kind of pointed out that we'll have to play with that a little bit to make sure that the information that we determined those people should review the resumes and the applications, that there's no private data that they would be seeing that they shouldn't be seeing, and that there would be if we believed that it was reasonable for them to review the applications, then there would probably need to be a board action at some time in the future. It didn't need to be today, but as we kind of get closer, we can work on that. Making a finding that those people need to have access to that data and kind of defining its limits. So essentially, it'd need to be board action to identify the other people reviewing the resumes.
Okay.
So, okay. I'm sure that was clear as mud. Are you?
Madam President, it's my understanding or recollection that we have to advise people we request private data from how the data will be used. And so it seems to me we probably need to focus on whether or not we need to add something in the notification here.
So are you on the Tennyson warning?
Yes.
Okay, so I've actually circled in that very last paragraph where it says district staff and managers directly. I'm gonna, if this is what you're thinking, Manager Bradley, I was gonna circle back and have Chuck review this to see if we needed to identify anyone else on the sheet that might be reviewing it.
Well, it goes beyond that. It's the announcement that we've got on page 3 of your handout. And whether we need to, and congratulations on knowing who Senator Tennyson was. The Tennyson warning, whether or not we need to include that in our announcement.
So there was actually some discussion too, whether we needed to, not only in the announcement, but upon receipt of the applications, because when you go through that process, we were only to 5, but according to Chuck, once we get to step 7, which is the first time you guys are all in a room together with your applications, that data, their resumes don't become part of the packet, if I am correct, Louis, but their names could become public. Now, at that point, we could assign each one a number, and so you'd be looking at applicant 1 and having discussions. But then once you get, but it would still be an open meeting, and then once you get down to your actual interviews, those are open meetings, and anyone could attend, if that's my interpretation of Chuck's email or notes, but we could just ask people to voluntarily leave the room. But I think kind of circling back to Manager Bradley's concerns, I think if I were an applicant, I would want to know at what point it became public knowledge that I was on a list.
Yeah, because they're probably working somewhere else.
Exactly.
At
So
that point, they're
if
done.
we're looking at a finalist of 2 or 3, maybe I'd like, okay, I'll roll the dice. If if you were interviewing 7, and this was the conversation Louis and I had, maybe I'm not really a finalist and I don't need my current boss to know that I'm doing this. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're trying to figure out.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out how far in advance we need to figure all that out and the notices. Obviously, the material that you send to us should be stamped, contains private data, as a reminder to all of us, to treat it as such and their consultants. We would need to tell the applicants that we intend to treat your resume as private data until such time as if and when you were to become a finalist.
Exactly.
Your resume will be shared with our board members and selected staff and consultants, sort of thing.
Madam President, Manager Bradley, yes, I think that's a good point, that you're sparing yourself a lot of answering of questions of individual applicants, and it's a prudent thing to do and consistent with the purpose of the Tennyson warning. So a few sentences in the announcement indicating the nature of how the data will be managed, and just as Manager Bradley described, I think would be appropriate.
Okay.
Madam President, Mr. Smith, I would prefer to have this done with numbers and anonymous. I don't really wish to know who I'm until they're down to the actual finalists that we've selected and they actually come in the room and introduce themselves. And I think that makes a much more objective and impartial ability to make a selection on it. For myself personally, that's my viewpoint about it. So if there's a way to keep this anonymous for these individuals, that also protects their privacy, in my view, greater, and also protects me from making an error.
Well, the resume of the applications.
It's
usually
gonna
are-
tell you who they are, you can almost know.
We could,
Just by who the, references.
Yeah, were they working?
You people would probably figure them all out. I'd be anonymous whether they have a name on it or not.
Yeah, well, me too, but I understand that, but it might be for the engineers and the attorneys who are far more, knowledgeable of many, many more people, but that's something that, just for me, that's easy for me to do if it's kept that way. You suggested numbers, and I'm supporting that concept.
sure, so numbers at least, okay, I'm
Until
trying to
when?
wrap my mind around this, numbers the entire time or numbers until the interviews?
To the final interview.
Okay, so even when you're reviewing them. So I'm gonna kind of swing over to Louis here. I do know that there are a lot of other organizations, including other watershed districts in the metro area, that are changing to a kind of a nameless application process. My question is, if there were potentially an internal candidate to apply even without their name, it would be obvious to the board who that was. Does that in any way cause a disadvantage to the other people that are nameless? I mean, does that negate that? Do you have a recommendation?
Madam President,
It's gonna happen.
managers, I think a lot of this is within the realm of your prudence of how you want to manage the process. Legally, you want to keep the applicant information private and reviewable only by those who need to see it until you get to the point of selecting finalists. So if you want to follow a system in which upon receiving an application, the name is blacked out and there's a number assigned, that's within your discretion to establish that process as a way of kind of blind applicants. I think Ms. Carino's point is well taken, that if there's other identifying information besides the
A lot
name,
of it, yeah.
both for potential internal candidates as well as external. So there is some degree to which you will always be able to discern
That's right.
some of that information. So I think really the most important thing is as an organization, you want to legally keep all that information private and internal, and go through your review process to the point where you select finalists, then those names become public and they're involved in a public interview process.
I would like to go halfway to where Manager Waller is proposing. That is, at the time that you send them to us, clearly identify a number that goes with each name. And we should, in responding to you, when we give you our list of our 5 people, we should identify them by number. Whatever we can do to just kind of, frankly, familiarize ourselves with the concept that we're dealing with numbers, not names at this juncture, would be a good thing. But, you know, if the current manager of Bowser were to apply, it would be useful to me to know that when I was reviewing or whatever. I mean, I think the names are relevant.
By their history and their
I would
references.
suggest, when they talk about where they are in the
Say, wait,
history.
is that really?
Yeah,
Another thing is that, remember I mentioned that I still want Googling done. So if that's going to be done, that would have to be done with a report beforehand, because if I have a number, I can't do anything further on it.
Trust us with the names, that's what my feeling.
Yeah, in the long run, I guess,
well, we have to know them. I mean, you're gonna know them anyway. I don't have a problem either way.
So I want to interpret what
What we just
what
said.
you just said.
good,
So
do
it is-
that for us.
And I'm going to go back and check the minutes. I see Teresa's taking notes, and I'm so appreciative. So the applications will come in. They will go out to you, then assigned a number, but still have the name that is under discussion, but that's what I'm hearing over here, right? Still have the name, but a number, and then when we go into that first meeting, we will refer to them by their numbers, not by their names.
Okay,
And then after it gets to who you are going to be selecting, they will be finalists and
They'll be listed.
the names will be listed. Question for you, Louis. After that meeting, where we've identified, we've narrowed it down to 3, 5, 7, whatever that is, would staff be able to contact those individuals again to say, well, we have to contact them to say, we've selected you for an interview, inform them of the number of people being interviewed and the fact that it will be a public meeting, and then ask them if they would like to continue to go on. And only if they say yes, then it would be so they could still be confidential until we have that conversation. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think they should know once it's public, yeah.
Madam President, Managers, Beth, I think that's exactly right, that you, as a matter of prudence, want to manage that last communication very carefully, because an applicant, if they're told they're one of 7 finalists, that might be a different calculation than if they're one of 3. And so,
And I think
you
that
would
should
allow
be
them
done in
that
writing with
opportunity.
the signature from them that they acknowledge it, that it's public. Because they could lose their jobs over it, seriously.
No, Madam President, I don't have any problem with the documentation you're suggesting.
Yeah, I think we
Not at
should.
all. For the protection of the applicant and the board.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll get the applications, they'll go to you, they will have their names, but a number. And then you will send your comments back, we'll go through that review, we will narrow it down by numbers in the meeting where you are all present. And then, once you have your short list, we'll contact I'm gonna suggest we call each applicant, explain where we are in the process, explain the ramifications, have them accept or not accept, and then have them sign. Do they sign the Tennyson again, or can we just come up with a statement where they
Send you-
acknowledge?
As far as I'm concerned, they can send you an email. We just want something
Sure.
acknowledging
Okay,
that I authorize you to release my name as for the part of the process.
okay. So, and then they would, then we would have our meetings. And again, Louis, if I'm correct, even after those interviews, their resumes are still private. That doesn't go into the board packet for the interviews, does it?
Madam President, Managers, there's several ways that you can manage that process. You're trying to err on the side of protecting privacy as much as possible. To the extent that you need to discuss information comparing the applications, you can refer to that, and especially once you're in a public interview process. But we would talk about a way to kind of manage that information so that you're maximizing the privacy aspect as much as you
And
can.
that's the point we bring the staff in at?
That is no, that's when you're doing the interviews.
That's actually when we're doing the interviews.
Yes, when the staff are reviewing it, it's still,
Private.
private.
Okay.
It doesn't become public. So it's 7, 8, and 9, those last 3 steps are when it's public.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, and then those meetings, as we said, would be public, but we would ask folks to voluntarily, leave the room. Oh, I remember. I'm sorry. Here's the other thing. Chuck and I asked Chuck specifically about taking notes because, sometimes we take notes during interviews. And we would need to kind of really state the process for that. He said a good practice is to minimize the creation of notes so that we don't have to keep them and there will be further discussion with him under the Data Practices Act and the extent to which we can keep notes and what those notes mean and what has to be, I'm sorry, I'm walking away from the iPhone, what has to be saved, what doesn't. So that's something just kind of keep in mind, that when you're at home and you're looking at it privately, but once you come into the group, that becomes kind of public information.
Wow.
Boy, it's too bad we had to do this, isn't it?
Oh, my
I
gosh.
would be shocked if we have a record retention requirement that managers' individual notes on anything are part of the permanent public record and have to be kept for 6 years before being destroyed.
I'd be shocked if they could read mine.
I know they might be mine, so I'm good.
I don't know. I know that when we've interviewed in the past, Phil did collect our official notes from the interviews, and they had to be retained. And I'm just, this is just what Chuck said. We just have to be very
Let's just
careful.
not be carried away with this, okay?
So does that
Can
mean,
you tell I'm just sweating up here?
Relax.
Madam President, does that mean you all have to check your devices in so you aren't in there with your thumbs? Putting a little note back to yourself?
Okay.
So I'll also, it is a very common practice these days that people, when they apply, the hiring managers or whoever do Google them and find out what they can. I will verify with Chuck if there are any things that we need to be wary of and what should and shouldn't be reported back to you from those kinds of things.
Madam President, so the issue about the information search on the machine Google has been brought up. So I'm curious, since the engineers and the attorneys weren't, the consultants weren't present at the workshop when we had this discussion, and you're going to review that, just could you kind of give, each one of you give me a general idea of what you would do in the review? I mean, what you had in mind? For your, as the attorney, how would you, if you're gonna review these candidates for us, what processes and steps did you have in mind? From what viewpoint? Just give me a general idea. I'm kinda curious. I don't know what a Google search is going to turn up, but I'm kinda curious as to what your individual consultants,
Would turn
as,
out, or how would you do
as
it?
your, your professional occupation, what you'd look for.
Madam President, Manager Waller, I understand your question to be if we receive these applicants and we are going to search on the internet for any information about them, what would we be looking for?
Even the internet or any review you'd do.
Okay. I think one matter of prudence would be, there may be news articles that would turn up about the professional activities or involvements of an applicant, and sometimes that's a way in which you find out important information about either project successes or challenges. So there may be information there, and it may also be that you wouldn't want to assume that those articles are always factually accurate. So
Fake news.
it may simply be a trigger of a question or an inquiry to understand someone's background. So, I think that's primarily it. There may also be other professional presentations that a person has made that would show up in that kind of search. Those would be the two main ideas I would see it being relevant.
But Louis, can I ask a clarifying question? You would not, unless directly requested by the board, do a background check of an applicant on your own?
Madam President, Ms. Carino, background checks are, I would say, at the point of your finalist or your offered candidate.
That's what, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
That, Madam President, that tells me when you do that, Louis, but what you're telling me is that at final candidates, a background check is something that would be standard procedure.
Madam President, Manager Waller, typically, the background check isn't done until you are ready to extend an offer to
I
an
understand
individual.
that's when.
It's within your discretion to run them and have permission from all the finalists as well.
And so we'd have to actually order you to do it, is what you're telling me.
We would,
Be-
we would
want
do
your
it.
guidance.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
We-
So I'm just trying to get an idea of what you do. You have any comment, Chris?
Madam President, Manager Waller, I have not yet been asked to even contemplate what kind of role that would be, so I really can't answer anything at this time. I haven't thought that through, and I'd probably need a little bit of direction as to what the board would want out of me in providing input.
But thank you, gentlemen, thank you.
If I could add one other thing, just from my own experiences of Googling people that an organization might want to hire. In addition to the professional presentations and articles, sometimes there are blogs or Facebook posts that reinforce a positive impression or raise red flags.
Okay, any other questions? Page
All
2.
right.
Okay.
We have motions proposed here.
So, before, I'm gonna interrupt y'all one more time.
No, go ahead.
Just so that I make sure that we do this right, if the motions are approved, the announcement would be modified, to have a statement about more clearly the privacy, issues and our process for that. I could also put it in the position profile. You'll see on the position profile a few changes. This is more than just the position description and the background experience we're looking for. This has a much shortened statement about Rice Creek Watershed District that is consistent with kind of what we say in press releases and other things. And then projects and programs, that last piece is just taken out of the watershed management plan. This doesn't have to be in there. If there was similar information in the last position profile, since our watershed management plan has not yet been approved and is not on our website, I erred on the side of putting it in here. And then you guys could tell me to take it out if you wanted to, because this is not something they could find on our website right now.
It's not in our old plan?
It's different.
Oh,
The
okay.
categories are different. It's just different.
Madam President, I have one comment about this background and experience issue. You have these bullet points up here on the very top, you see?
Sure.
The knowledge of hydrology, knowledge, experience of working with various regulatory agencies, et cetera. And then the number 3 down there is finances. And, I look at the district as a public municipal corporation. And so I feel that one of the things, we have many experts here in conservation. We have them in lakes and in permitting and in drainage and there's 4 of them in there, and then, and so, but we don't have what I would call a person that comes with what would be a chief financial officer experience for a public corporation. And I feel that business point of view is very, very important, because as the district goes on, in my vision of the district, I realize that might be a nightmare to some of you, but I see it as a need for that, because there's going to be more and more work to be done, and I think that's important about how that how the planning goes. And so, to me, I liked number 3. You understand, but I'm asking that some kind of statement for number 3 also be in the bullets up here
Sure.
at the top.
Sure, so, I'll put this for discussion and, you know, it would be very easy and, probably be prudent to put a statement that, experience with, organizational finances, budgets, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, it would read similar to the others, but it would speak directly to the financial side.
Okay, good, I like that. Use that as a 5th bullet up there
Okay.
or something.
And I will
I'm not
probably,
following where the bullets are.
The bullets are right up in here on page 3
On
of
page
5.
Right.
3 of 5, there's bullets under background and experiences, knowledge, like you said, hydrology.
The qualified,
working
it starts qualified candidates have to have these particular
skills, and so if you just also refer something to.
So what I-
your-
But it already says it will also possess knowledge and skills, so,
I know, but you go down and they are defined under the 5
He's
areas,
3A,
but
he's
I
looking
just,
at-
no, I know what he's looking at, but what I'm saying is you're already saying it. It doesn't have to be in a bullet, because we don't want to turn somebody's application away because they don't know that
Well,
side
wait a
of it.
minute, where's it already saying it?
Right here. It says right here, qualified candidates will also possess knowledge and skills in the following
Oh,
areas.
I know it does, but I like it in that bullet area too.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm
I know
saying,
it isn't, you just said
I'm
it
saying we
already
could
is
lose
sufficient.
somebody that might be great in a position, and we have financial experts. So what they're here for is the
They're
knowledge
also
of the
here for
watershed.
budgeting.
Hmm?
They're also here for budgeting.
I know, but it already says they have to know that. Will possess knowledge and skills in the following
Okay,
areas.
I don't mind it up there into the top 4.
Well, I don't mind, it's just that you're double.
well, but all of it's doubling, because
it's
when
all
you look,
doubling.
when you read knowledge of hydrology, you go down here to talk about hydrology eventually. You
You're
come down here-
elaborating it,
Yeah.
but you're not
There-
having it underneath the 5.
Every one of them has different areas. Human resources, for example, has to be in there. And, you know, that's not necessarily the top. I don't think you're gonna lose anybody. I just,
See,
I
it's all,
felt
everything
that was.
qualified, they're reiterating
It
already
what you've
says
got
that
in those
they'll
4
possess it.
bullets.
Okay, somebody's right, is that you?
Oh,
so,
I've got it all.
so do we have, since we're not in a workshop, I'm not really sure the next
No,
step, do we
The
put
next
it?
step is, what does everybody want to do?
So I concur that it would be wise that there are 3 main qualities: someone who understands what we're doing, someone who can manage staff, and someone who can manage our money. I mean, those are the 3 big deals, right? So adding a bullet that requires some knowledge of financial management makes sense to me. And for the same reason, a sentence on our notice after, on the second paragraph, after the second sentence, a sentence that addresses knowledge of financial planning and implementation or something.
So above, we do say that they administer the annual budget, but we don't have that as a requirement. So what I'm hearing you say is knowledge of water resources management. And then strong candidates will have a collaborative experience, technical knowledge, financial background, or experience managing budgets?
Yeah, I trust you to wordsmith it.
Okay.
I would hope that anybody in this administrator, that's the word administration, and it's going to have budget, they should know it, but I think we should
Yeah.
put it in there as a verbiage, so yes.
Yeah, it's in there,
And
so that's
there.
fine with me, you're just
And
repeating
I
it.
think I'd still like a 5th bullet up there on
That's
the
fine.
background and experience on the.
And I'm just reinforcing that again on the public
And I
notice.
think this should
Yeah,
be in
yeah,
the
it
public
should, it
notice.
should be on
And
the,
that's a public notice too.
Yeah.
that might actually draw some candidates.
Yeah.
I mean, any administrator knows that any organization public or private has got a
Has
budget.
to know about their money. Yeah, it says that in
Know
there.
about money.
Now it'll be in there twice, that's fine.
If you follow the business model.
Yeah,
Business
Yeah.
model
It's
is
simple.
always hiring presidents who know nothing about the gizmos.
But they know
how
the
to run
money.
a business.
Correct, and that's what we're looking for, somebody who knows how to run this municipal corporation.
yeah,
The Watershed Board.
okay.
Okay. What else? Oh, Beth, finish up your notes.
Well, I think that's the biggest part of it is that I believe, the reason I'm asking for a motion is that I believe with some of the changes that you have suggested, adding the privacy information, we can update that process piece, but we've got time to do that. Making some of the language changes that you've requested for the position description and the announcement. I believe that we could post this announcement within the next week.
Good.
And I say week just because I'm just trying to give myself enough time to get all of my ducks in a row. And that we would look to have it returned approximately August 16th, maybe a few days later if there's a little lag.
Okay.
Good.
Does that seem?
I think your timetable's good to me, for me.
Okay. So that's kind of why I proposed the motion, is even with the discussion around the process, I'll continue to work closely with Chuck and Lewis to make sure that we manage ourselves appropriately. But with the changes to the privacy notice, that kind of information, few changes, tweaks to the announcement and the position description, I think we can,
I think we can go.
yeah.
You're doing an excellent job,
Okay,
by the
we
way.
need a motion.
Beth. I know. You said you're sweating up there, I understand. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve the proposed process with any necessary legal modifications, with any significant changes to be brought back. No, I don't want it brought back to the board, do I?
Well, if
there's-
there's
We'll wanna
something
see it, but
significant, I
go
with
with it.
I'll bring it, I mean,
Okay,
you're gonna hear about it.
Okay.
We'll
Then-
update you at the next workshop, for sure, if not sooner.
How you're
about
going
this-
to put this out?
Okay, that's a motion and a second.
That,
Second.
Does that include
That
the
includes
changes
that.
that we've discussed here
Yeah.
today?
that'll
Yeah.
include the
All right.
changes, and it'll also say that, haven't read the second one, but that means it still can go out next week, doesn't it?
So
With
the
week
second one is
passing.
to actually approve allowing staff to post it and promote it.
So we gotta finish the first one. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we need a motion and a second.
Second,
I
okay.
move we approve the posting and promoting the position announcement with any necessary legal notifications, formatting, and non-material changes to partner organizations for use in their outreach and educational, wait a minute, I got the wrong
Oh, my goodness,
How did
I
I
was
get that
cutting
one?
and pasting at 10 o'clock last night, I'm so sorry.
Page two?
Let me restate it.
Yeah.
I move we approve the posting and promoting the position announcements with any necessary legal notifications, formatting, and non-material changes.
All right, thank you,
Second.
I apologize.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, well, thank you,
So-
Beth.
All right, Manager Hockey's gonna take her compliment back.
No, I'm not. I will not. You are doing an excellent job.
All
Glad we
right.
got you.
We will get this, I will also let all of you know when it goes out.
Good.
Yeah, because we could have calls too.
You mind?
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Okay?
sounds good.
Thank you very much, Beth.
Thank you.
Kyle.
Madam President, members of the board, hopefully a slightly less controversial topic here. We have a partial pay request to Rachel Contracting, partial pay request number 16 for the Hanson Park Comprehensive Water Management Project in the amount of $32,756.91. Houston's recommendation memo is in your packet. Staff concurs with the recommendation. We are very, very, very close to being completely done with this project. As you'll note, there is a mention of a pending change order number 7. We expect that to come in very shortly, and that's to do some minor grade changes that are required on the eastern trail that sunk on us.
Sunk.
It's sunk, and so we will be rebuilding that to plan grade, along with some minor topsoil and seeding in certain places. So Word on the street is that that work should be completed here in late January, and that change order should include a early August final completion date, so that we get this wrapped up and done. But the item on the agenda today is the change, or excuse me, is the pay
Yeah,
request,
it's the pay
which is
request.
recommended for approval.
And we still have money in the kitty to take care of the sunken eastern.
Yeah, we're substantially below the
We're still okay.
contingency threshold that was set by the board.
I make a motion to approve Rachel Contracting Inc.'s pay request as submitted and certified by the district engineer and direct staff to issue payment in the amount of $32,756.91.
Second. Go ahead, Mike.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Pretty soon it'll be off your plate, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Well, it's never really off.
Kind of keeps going.
I guess you're right.
Okay, the next thing is a resolution 2019-20.
Yes, President Pryor, Board of Managers, before you is a resolution ratifying the depository designation. This is much about making board and staff actions clear, should anyone look into our record. Each year, you do designate the financial depository for the district. You did indeed do that on February 27th by Resolution 1904 and identified the 4M Fund as your depository. And in all cases, and as well as here, those funds remain at the previous depository until such time that they're transferred. In the current year, you did have transition of district administrator position, and therefore those funds have not been moved yet. So this resolution looks back to confirm that the funds remaining at Old National in that interim condition is acceptable to the board. And after we'll get this resolution on the record, and staff will proceed to move those funds accordingly, and there's no further action required from the board in order for us to do that.
Madam Chair, question. How long have we used Old National Bank and what's 4M Fund? I know that you had this all discussed in evidently February.
Yep.
Where is this bank located?
Maybe Teresa can update us on this, for Barbara hasn't been involved.
Well, the 4M Fund, they're out in Albertville, but we work through US Bank, and then their money is swept up into the 4M Fund.
So it is US Bank.
Yes.
So,
it's right down
and so Old National Bank, how long have we been with, or ran it through Old National?
over 10 years.
Yeah, seems like
Yeah.
10 years? So what I've seen basically has been US Bank. It's been the main,
No, our
No.
main bank has been.
Old National Bank.
It was Anchor Bank.
Was Anchor.
There you
And then it
go,
was
there you
bought
go,
out.
there you go. It's Anchor Bank that
Yeah.
I'm most familiar with. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, we need a motion.
Madam President, I'll move resolution 2019-20, ratifying the deposit designation of Old National Bank. See, therefore, be it resolved that as of and since February 27, 2019, Old National Bank has remained a designated district depository and will remain until the transfer of district funds from Old National Bank has been completed.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. It'll be an individual vote. Waller.
Yes.
Hockey.
Okay,
Bradley.
Yes.
Wageman. Absent. Preiner. Yes. Motion passes. And we will proceed then to make the transfer. Okay. Check register.
okay, so I guess since Steve is not here, I'd make a motion that we accept the check register dated July 10th, 2019 in the amount of $278,714.52 prepared by Redpath and Company.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Discussion only. Engineer update. Anything new, Chris?
Madam President, I don't have anything to note, but then if you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer.
Any questions from the board? Managers update? Wally?
No,
Bradley?
Nope.
No, thank you.
And me, no. So therefore, we need a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I
make a
move to
motion-
adjourn.
Second, its motion was made by Waller, seconded by myself.
Motion made. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Now we're